Did Aunt Becky teach adolescent you that the best way to watch what you eat is by plastering photos of thinner people on your refrigerator? Or did Bridget Jones teach young adult you that being fat equates to a miserable, lonely life? If these are part of your foundational body image memories, you might be a Xennial, and we are too. Hi, I'm Katie.
And I'm Danny.
And today is the second part of a two-part series so far that we are doing on body image and our foundational years of forming it, as well as all the work we are still currently doing as 40-somethings, still chasing to kind of undo some of those toxic thoughts and behaviors that have been with us most of our life. If you haven't listened to the other episode on toxic fitness culture that Danny helmed, it is live for you now in our feeds. And I just want to preface, like we did with that episode, to say that this one will discuss disordered eating, addiction to exercise, body dysmorphia, and other issues that were, frankly, very difficult emotionally to research and revisit. So I can imagine that it will be hard for some of you to listen to it, but we wanted to publish these episodes as a way to both share information and also say, hey, we're still working on this, and we are here for you if you are too. That being said, we completely understand if for your mental health, for yourself, you need to skip those 2 episodes. No hard feelings whatsoever. Whatever you need to do is fine with us.
Yes, absolutely. Take care of yourselves. We also deliberately recorded some lighter episodes that usually is our fodder here on Generation in Between. We do get serious sometimes, but so if you feel heavy and just kind of like you got the weight of the world on your shoulders, literally, like we did after we recorded these, just look for our books episode or our episode on celebrity cats and dogs from the 80s and 90s. Or loop back to some of our beginning episodes like the Disney Renaissance or Happy Meal toys. We've got a lot of fun ones in our mix. So if you need to kind of cleanse your palate, take a little trip back with us in that way.
Yes, absolutely. And depending when you're listening to this, I would say if you're listening in 2027, there's probably dozens more of these lighthearted episodes and probably some serious ones in there too that you can revisit. And we just love you guys so much and we care about you. And so we just encourage you to take what you need from this episode and any episodes we do. And speaking of, if you have any episode suggestions, we do have a form for that now. I know a lot of you reach out to us on social, or if we know you IRL in real life, you tell us. But the best way for us to stay organized with what you're sending in is to head to our link tree, which is in our show notes, as well as all of our social. And it's very clearly marked episode suggestions. It's, a private form, so we're the only ones that'll see it. We do have a question on there asking if we have permission to thank you for the idea if we use it. And so you can say yes or no to that. If you just want to send it, anonymously, that's fine as well. So thank you so much for that. So only so much procrastinating, I guess, right? We can do.
I gotta say, though, I'm excited about those listener ideas, so yay.
I know, me too. I can't wait. I mean, just the ones people are like, oh, you should do this or that. It's like, oh yeah, that's like actually a really good idea.
But we be forgetting stuff, y'all. So that's why we need a Google form.
Please. And then we can just like open it. There's even a button to export it to a spreadsheet, which I feel like, yes, we'll do that.
Sweet.
And then we can keep track even better. But anyway, middle-aged Xennial fodder and banter here. All right.
Here we go.
So as I mentioned, Danny headed up the last episode, which touched on a lot of things, including toxic fitness culture of the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and today. And I know she opened up about her own body image issues and challenges. I touched on mine a little, but I think I just want to start there today with me sort of explaining what my body image issues are, what they've looked like in the past, where I am today, and how I'm doing. So, Danny, I don't know that you know all of this. So if there's a point where you have questions, hop on in. So if we go in the Wayback Machine, right, as a kid, I was a very athletic kid. I was a swimmer. I was a dancer. I did gymnastics. I rode my bike everywhere. Like I was just always on the go, always moving. And as a younger kid, that was enough to just kind of be what we would consider, some would consider normal weight, whatever that looks like. In 9th and 10th grade, my body really started developing. My boobs got bigger. The hips got wider. I was tall too. So I was looking a lot older than a lot of my peers, which really made me start to feel a lot bigger than everyone else. And truthfully, I was naturally taller than most of the girls I hung out with. I was taller than boys I liked. I was more developed than a lot of people. And to me, that was bad. That made me self-conscious. That made me, whether it was consciously or not, I don't think it was consciously at this point. Eventually it would be, try to find ways to A, not look like how I naturally was supposed to look, and B, be smaller, to shrink. And so when I was a sophomore, I went on a mission trip with my church to the Dominican Republic, and I got the flu that you get when you're out of the country. I was sick almost the whole trip, which is kind of devastating because I didn't get to do any of the things I went there to do. And I was throwing up and just all the things. And even when I got home, I was sick for a while. I ended up losing between 10 and 15 pounds.
Oh, my word.
Over the course of 2 weeks. A lot when maybe I thought I was big, but I really wasn't that big to begin with. And then losing that. And I was young. And I just remember going to buy, because I always had a job, going to buy shorts or something for the summer. Because I think I went over spring break, so summertime. And I was 2 sizes smaller than the last pair of shorts I had bought.
Wow.
So for example, if I was wearing maybe a size 8, that sounds about right. I was buying size 4.
Wow.
And feeling good about it. Feeling oh, wow. Not necessarily that I wanted to lose more weight, but how do I stay here?
Oh.
And I think most of it was the sickness. It could have been too. I had a little growth spurt and clothes fit me differently. It could have also been that. It was probably a combination. And I don't particularly remember anyone necessarily commenting on that, but I just remember being able to fit into some of my other friends' clothes who I thought were thin and small and that sort of thing for the first time with this particular friend group. So from there, just kind of took off this constant race to stay thin. Again, with the exception, of pregnancy weight loss, which we'll talk about a little bit, I've never been overweight where I'm trying to lose, 30 pounds, 40 pounds, 50 pounds. Never. So I would say for me, it was less about trying to get smaller and more about staying thin. And we've talked on episodes about how I'm kind of low maintenance. I don't like to wear a lot of makeup. Right. I was like that as a teen too. I was maybe a little more into fashion, but so to me, it was this is an easy way for me to be attractive is to just be thin. Not strong, not fit.
Just thin.
Right. Just thin.
Yeah.
And to me, obviously it was a lot of work and a lot of mentally taxing, but to me it was an easy thing I could do.
Quote unquote easy.
Quote unquote easy.
Right.
And of course, we'll get into some of the issues that go along with that, the control issues that all tie into mental health. So it was just this constant race to stay thin. In high school, it did, I was never officially diagnosed, but certainly some anorexia in there where it was a deliberate act of not eating for a certain amount of time. I was relentlessly checking calories, fat counts. We're talking ages 15, 16, 17. And of course, this was the age of SnackWells and baked Lays. So I had access to low fat, low calorie things, basically made of chemicals as my body and brain were still developing that I saw as better options. And I will add in here to you that, as I mentioned, I've never been diagnosed with anything. Probably should have seen experts at many points in this journey. I do believe that I suffer from, continue to, and have body dysmorphia.
Same.
Okay.
I think everybody in our generation almost, I swear. And I don't mean just females.
Right. No, that's such a great point. And also just a reminder to everyone that we are white women who are in our early 40s. And this is our perspective. And that we're hopefully sharing things that are universal that people can connect with. But your perspective's going to be a little different depending what generation you're in.
Right.
Male, female, if you're a person of color, if you're not, trauma in your life and how that's affected this sort of thing, what you were exposed to from your family unit, from your friend unit, media, which we're going to get into today as well.
Yeah. And we should probably also say body dysmorphia too has different definitions for different people depending on. So I know that this can also be a very heavy thing to discuss with people who identify as trans. And that is a very serious, scary thing. So we are speaking on it from a different, point of view than that. So we should probably just say that. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in your story.
No, it's fine, because I'm glad you said that, because I did get the actual definition here, which is body dysmorphia is a mental illness involving obsessive focus on a perceived flaw in appearance. So it is not confined to just weight.
Correct.
And size. Generally, that's what we associate it with, because it's very common, but it can be anything. And the flaw may be minor or imagined. But the person may spend hours a day trying to fix it. The person may try any cosmetic procedures or exercise to excess. They may examine their appearance in a mirror, compare their appearance with that of others, avoid social situations or photos. I will add avoiding mirrors.
Oh, yes.
I don't like to look in mirrors. Yes. I have my bathroom set up the way I want it. So but when I'm in public, to go to wash my hands, at the theater or wherever, I do not look at myself. I will not. And it's kind of crazy, but it started from this, if I look and I don't like what I see, then I'm stuck in this social space. Whereas if I'm home and I look, it's sort of well, who cares? I'm at home. Or, I could wear something different. I could do, there's, again, the perceived control.
Correct.
Right. Even dance. I don't like to look in the mirror at dance.
I have the hardest time in dance studios because you have to look to make sure your form is right. Right? And you know what's interesting? I don't have a hard time watching myself at home working, when I'm exercising, to make sure my form is right. I think because that I'm that's my job.
Yeah.
But dance studios are hard because it's not just one mirror. It's the whole wall.
Yeah. And for me, kind of going back to what I was saying about how I had friends who are smaller, I'm just a taller, bigger person in some situations. That's how I feel now. If I'm in a dance audition and I'm with a bunch of 20-year-olds and then there's me, it's not just me I'm seeing in the mirror.
Right.
It's me next to whoever. And I think if it was just me practicing or something, it'd be different. So I have a hard time. And again, mental health professionals, you're probably yes, please call me.
Right.
And I should. But my coping technique for that is just sometimes I don't look, even in an audition. And you know what? I'm probably doing stuff wrong that I would be able to spot if I could watch myself. And I'm not, so there is that. So anyway, I get through high school, go to college, and now not only am I barely eating and alcohol is being introduced, super healthy combination, I'm going to add over exercise to that mix. It's the first time I had free access to a really nice gym I could walk to. It was a fun thing to do with friends, which is great. I think, yes, exercise, move with your friends if that's something that's available to you. But it just sort of spiraled downward and downward. I'm going by myself. I'm going multiple times a day.
Yeah.
I remember I got a job with the recreation program, and I had to kind of just monitor the arena.
Yeah.
And I would walk the whole time. Because it was my job to kind of pay attention, but they weren't check this station, that station. I would be I clocked 4 miles while I worked today.
Wow.
I couldn't just be at my job.
That's also a mental health thing too, right? Because I struggle with that too. It's interesting how we have so many overlapping things like this when we're talking about body image, but they manifested differently and at different times for us both. Which is interesting because I think a lot of the things that we're going to talk about in society is why really was a big impact for both of us that gave us some of this almost eerily the same issues.
And I have to think, you and I haven't even known each other for a year, which is mind-boggling at this point, that if we are connecting on this, we cannot be the only ones.
Oh, no way.
And at all. I do have like one other thing on here. I want to be careful how I speak about it. But when I was in college, I'm talking about going and exercising and over exercise. But I remember there was a girl and I knew her from the pageant circles. And she was in pageant, did okay, but she was really going for it. Like, if you haven't listened to our pageant episode, please go back and listen. And you're like, what? Katie, pageant, what's happening?
Yeah.
You could, all the details are there. But I remember, and I never thought, that's what's weird. I've never cared what anyone else's bodies look like. So I never thought that this particular girl was heavier or whatever. But I remember we were in a competition together. And after that, I would always see her at the gym. And then my friends would go later and they would see her at the gym. I mean, this girl had to be walking or running 4 hours a day. And she got to like skeletal before her next pageant. And I don't know what's ever happened to her.
That breaks my heart.
Yeah. But I'm sitting here going, oh, she has a problem. And I knew she did. But it's like, well, I kind of have I'm seeing her every time I'm here.
Right.
So what does that say?
Right.
So there's that. And then I was pregnant at age 24. I remember I didn't get morning sickness with my first one because, like, I don't know, this girl, she's just an angel. She's like a golden baby, even to this day. And I was never sick, like to the point that I was like thought something was wrong.
Yeah.
Sick as a dog with my other ones, never sick with her. And I remember I went to see my OB and they weighed me and he was like, oh, I'm really concerned. You've already gained 2 pounds. And I was like, I don't know. 10.
He was upset about 2 pounds. And male doctor?
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
At 10 weeks. And I said, well, because I know what they say. It fluctuates 3 pounds, blah, blah, blah. So I think not that it mattered.
Right.
But I was like, well, I may not have gained anything. And also, isn't it good that I'm not sick and I'm growing? He's like, well, most people lose weight, but you're gaining weight.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Dude.
So come on. A 24-year-old and I weighed nothing
you were
at that
probably
time.
thin to begin with.
My body was probably like, yeah, let's pack a few pounds on real quick.
Well, your body was responding in the way it needed to supply for that baby that you were growing, correct?
Which you would think this doctor could understand, but it was almost like a warning, like, well, be careful, like if you're already, I'm doing the math on that, and I'm like, even if I gain 2 pounds a week, which I know some weeks you gain more than. At the time, I thought it was crappy. Like, I didn't feel bad about it.
Like, you knew he was
It's just an example of like, what we have to put up with. And so, but when I had her at 25, I lost the weight immediately.
Right.
Like, I mean, she was my first. I was young.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say, like, we went for walks and stuff, and I was pretty active while I was pregnant. And I didn't have other kids, so it was like, whatever. But, so that was kind of like my, okay, like I can do this. And then, and that's a whole other issue, the whole bounce back culture. Whew. Anyway.
Oh, man.
So a few years later, I got married, 2 other kids, embraced big family life, got pregnant 2 more times. And I did lose weight after the pregnancies, but never got down to what I was before. But thankfully, I didn't return to a place of disordered eating at that time.
Good.
I'd sort of, again, mental health professionals are ready to kill me, but I had sort of counseled myself through the anorexia. They're like, that doesn't exist, Katie. That does not exist. But whatever I had read or self-reflection I had with myself, I was not willing to go back to that. So I went to a healthier extreme.
Yes.
Which was over exercise again.
Yep.
My last daughter, Tegan, I signed up for a marathon when she was a newborn as like motivation. Now, first of all, I think it's fine to be like
her 5th child in her house at this point. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So not only do I have a newborn, I have a house full of small kids. I want to say my kids were 8 and under, all 5, maybe 9 and under.
And you're working full time.
And I was working. Yeah. I was freelancing, but I was working like a full schedule. I never took like a maternity leave, really. I just worked from home. And again, nothing wrong with being like, I'm going to get out there. I'm going to move. A marathon it's your whole life. You're not even, and I was breastfeeding for most of that training. So trying to do long runs, and it was a nightmare. So of course, my training didn't go as planned.
Right.
I ended up running it. Let me think about this. about 2 weeks after she turned 1.
That is mind-blowing to me.
And I ran it. And I was so mad at myself because I didn't get my like time that I wanted. And was kicking myself that I didn't train enough. And it wasn't like now, obviously, I realized that was silly. But even like a year later, I was like, that was really dumb. Like, why did I, A, do that, and B, set any expectations on myself? Mm-hmm. If I really wanted to just do it to accomplish it, that was enough. And I did do that. But like, that's where I was mentally. That this is a healthy way to be like this. And then, you know, I sort of just lived in that cycle for a while. Lots of exercise again. I have a lot of great friends I've run with. I've done a lot of half marathons. I loved, like, nothing at all against running culture. But for me, it was an aesthetic thing. It was if I stop this, seriously, back to that first point I made where I said, this is the easiest way for me to stay attractive.
Yeah.
But then when you think about all the things you're doing,
Correct.
A, you don't have to be attractive. And what does that mean anyway?
Right.
There's that.
Right.
And B, it's actually not that easy.
Right.
Unless you're okay with, you know, you have to kind of embrace what you look like and, you know, that sort of thing. If you're trying to get to this ideal that isn't natural for you.
For your body.
For your body, for your lifestyle.
Right.
You know, like it's a lot of work and money and all the things. So then throughout the years I went low carb for a while. I was vegetarian for a while. I was vegan for a while.
Same.
And I mean, again, I actually eat relatively low carb now just because I feel better when I do. Yeah. And I like those foods.
And not everybody's that way.
And I don't count it.
Correct.
But I'm just like, oh, I can have a salad with chicken on it instead of like a sandwich. Yeah, that's what I'm going to have. You know, like, because I know my joint health is better when I do that. And I feel better.
Yeah.
But I don't say, well, how many carbs is in this or whatever. Again, if that's what you do, that is you. But I'm saying for me, it gets to a place of disordered eating very quickly.
Right. And some people have to medically. My sister, this is a nice comment about my sister.
Oh my gosh.
It's just neutral, actually. She has a medical thing where she has to eat a lot of carbs. Okay. Like it's just, I don't remember what it is. So she has to like be aware that she's eating enough, right? She has to eat more carbs than quote unquote what is normal and expected, you know, whatever. But, you know, depending, let me ask you a question. I'm not trying to interrupt your story.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you a question about pregnancy and weight gain.
Yeah.
That I'm curious about. And if you don't want to answer, you don't have to. When you were pregnant, because you were pregnant several times, and you had already had some body image stuff going on before you were pregnant, was it hard for you to gain weight when you were pregnant? Did you struggle with that mentally, emotionally?
So the short answer is no.
Okay,
and I've done
surprising.
a little research into this since because I think it's weird, but it's actually pretty common.
Really?
Yes.
Because I struggled so much and I gained a lot of weight. A lot. I gained 60 pounds both times. And I'm a small boned person. It's a lot on a 5'2" person to gain that much weight in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
But that was really, because I was also having similar issues, you know, in my world of disordered eating and stuff. So I was just curious your experience on if you had the same, because for me it was very hard. Thankfully, I did not do anything drastic eating or exercise wise while I was pregnant, because I was thankfully aware enough that I was trying to take care of a child inside of my body. But it was very hard. I was very depressed the whole time.
Yeah.
Because of that.
I could see that.
I'm glad you didn't.
I didn't. And there's this wonderful influencer. I follow her on Instagram called Own It Babe. And
That's
she's,
cute.
It's adorable. And she actually has little ones right now. So when I started following her, she had like a baby and she was talking very like real pictures of her body and talking about things like we're talking about right now. And then she recently just had another baby. So she chronicled the pregnancy. And she was talking about how in some of her posts, she doesn't like this juxtaposition where both times she was pregnant, she wasn't worried about the weight because you have an excuse.
Oh.
And I think that's like, oh my gosh, so much to unpack there.
Oh man, isn't there?
When it's not that I'm not making an effort.
Right.
And you don't feel the guilt. Now, what you're describing is like, you're still physically seeing what you look like and you're physically like seeing the scale. And I think there may be two different issues.
Yeah, you're right. Probably is.
Yeah. And if one's a control issue, like this is total air quotes and not at all how I feel, but if I'm fat and overweight, it's because of something I'm doing. I'm lazy. I'm not trying hard enough. What else can I do?
Like if that's your narrative.
Correct.
Yeah.
But if you're growing a human,
right.
And I know women who work out a ton when they're pregnant. I know women who've run marathons pregnant. But for me, I was able to just kind of be like, well, I need to do this thing. And it's not my fault that I gained 50 pounds or whatever. I mean, maybe I could have gained 30. I don't know. But in my mind, it was like, this will be a later thing that I'm going to deal with. And probably drastically when this life doesn't depend on it. And I was able to sort of compartmentalize that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious.
No, it's a great question.
Yeah, I was just curious. So we'll get back to, then you had your kids, you're still in the aesthetic.
Kind of got into this cycle, and just floundering in this constant pursuit of an aesthetic that I really would never be able to find, partially because I'd had children, my body had changed, I was older, and also because nothing was good enough based on like the body dysmorphia. Danny, I sent you a picture this morning that I found, and I stumbled upon it recently. It's from about 4 or 5 years ago. I was running with one of my daughters, who obviously was a lot younger then. Kids grow fast. And I was astonished at how almost skeletal I look in the picture.
Yeah.
I was like, what? I don't remember looking like that during that time period. And I remember not wanting to post that picture because I thought I looked big. So that's what the narrative and the dysmorphia will do to you. Because,
Yeah, we weren't probably going to post any of the pictures we're talking about. I don't think we need to post pictures
I don't think
of
so.
our bodies from when we were in the midst of things.
Agreed.
I was thinking about that today. So I don't know what pictures I'm going to put up on our socials, but it won't be ourselves when we are in our midst.
No, I don't think so.
Right?
I don't think so, because that in and of itself can be triggering for others.
True.
But of course, listeners, if you just want to share with us and show us your pictures, we won't share them, but just to kind of tell us your story, we would love to see them. But I don't know, we'll talk about that. We'll decide what we want to do. But so then 2019 and 2020 happened. 2019, my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's officially. 2020 is COVID. And my mom being diagnosed, obviously, much more in depth than we can talk about on this episode, but really changed my perspective on a lot, really had me reassess a lot of things in my life, basically everything, top to bottom.
For sure. And
then in COVID, I was listening to a lot more podcasts. I was walking my dogs, going with my kids, working on my yard. And specifically, I listened to a really good episode on You're Wrong About on the obesity epidemic. And then the follow-up episodes, as well as kind of a spin-off show called Maintenance Phase. And one of the hosts of that, Aubrey Gordon, I read What We Don't Talk About When We Talk About Fat. And Danny, here it comes. Those episodes really helped me start to understand the capitalism of weight control, as well as the prejudice of it.
Boom.
For the first time.
Yep.
It was like this industry is trying to control me. It's not me in control. It's this narrative, this industry, this whatever that is trying to tell me I need to work on this or work on that or buy this thing, or I'm not good enough if I don't do this, and a constant pursuit of more. And it was sort of like when that clicked in my head, I kind of got angry. I was like, oh my God, this is not me in control. This is me feeding into all these things and not me actually saying, I want to run a marathon. I want to work out like this every day. I want to eat like this. And if I can get to the point where I can say that thing about something, then that's a thing I should do. But that wasn't what was happening. It was really an aha moment for me. And then to sort of top that off, in the spring of 2021, I tore my meniscus and I had to stop. I just had to stop. Had to stop running, had to stop pushing myself. I was able to obviously get back to movement eventually, but I reassessed my fitness, and my arthritis got really bad around then as well due to the injury. And I was able to sort of, kind of like we just said about pregnancy. My knee was the reason. My arthritis was the reason. Again, not an excuse to be like, oh, I'm never doing anything again. I don't know if excuse is the right word, because if I had chosen that, that would have been just fine.
Mm-hmm.
But more of a, well, this isn't my fault, so why don't I take this time? Let myself just stop. Let me get to know my body, right? Holistic, my brain health, my exercise, my diet, my natural size, and, not to get too much into it, even sexual health.
It's all connected.
Like I started to realize like so much of my sexual experience, because it all started to happen around the time that I was body conscious and body image conscious, relates to that.
Yeah.
And what I look like for that, or how my body interacts with others at like what they want and not what I like.
Exactly. And if we should I don't know if we could tackle that. So we should do an episode, and then I stop myself.
You're like, maybe not, maybe not.
Breaks.
But it is amazing when you start to sort of connect with your body.
Yeah.
And not just take the narrative you've either been given or that you've even constructed.
Yeah.
And start to sort of take it apart and say, well, why do I do this particular thing? And for me, what exercise do I like? What do I want to lace my shoes up and go do?
Right.
Is that running? Is that just going for a walk? Is that like whatever? This morning I like to go to Planet Fitness and walk on the treadmill at 5 a.m. And I really like to. I'm not just saying that. I like to.
She likes to text people that early too. So I have clients early in the morning, so it doesn't bother me.
Put your phones on silent,
That's
everyone.
When her brain goes.
My brain goes boop, and it helps me get organized for the day. And it's quiet, and nobody's talking to me, and I can like shoot off the texts I need to shoot off, and then I start my day, and I feel great.
Right.
And I don't know how many calories I know how far maybe I go because it tells me.
Right.
But I don't know. I don't have to revisit that later. It's just like, well, I did that, and I moved, and it brought me joy, and now we're moving on. So. So let's just kind of fast forward to today, which I sort of did, still trying to be comfortable. Always will be a work in progress. Any size, use movement as an outlet for joy, not an end all be all or something that equates my worth. It is an every day, every moment endeavor. And I really am grateful to you, Danny, because you are such a body positive, mobility positive coach.
Aww.
Y'all, she is my personal trainer. And look, even if you live far away, she doesn't know I'm saying this, by the way.
Oh, no.
She's going to look at me horrified. Contact us if you want Danny to help you set up some workouts or talk to you about fitness. She doesn't do anything with food.
No.
Don't ask her about food. But she can talk to you about some other things as a certified personal trainer. But I'm thankful to you in more ways than you know.
Aww.
So,
well, thanks.
And we'll put more information on how to contact her in our show notes, everybody. So that was a lot.
It's hard to summarize, isn't it? Such a journey.
It is.
It's hard. So thanks for sharing that with us.
Journey in progress, for sure. So as I was revisiting this and sort of trying to write it down, and I'm sure there's moments I missed, I tried to remember some specific media moments, because we talk a lot on here about pop culture, commercials, toys, things that we bought, like trends, whatever. And I was really trying to think of those. And there's so many. But I wrote down a few here, so I'd be interested to hear what you think about these and what you would add, Danny. So there's the one I referenced in the intro to the episode. So Aunt Becky, to the uninitiated, she is on Full House.
Oh, Aunt Becky.
That Aunt Becky.
I thought it was your Aunt Becky.
You're like, you have a terrible aunt. What is going on?
I mean, so many people did that, so I wouldn't be surprised if you had an aunt that did that.
It's true. It's true. So if you're younger and you haven't seen this episode, or you just for some reason never saw it when you were a Full House fan, if you were, Aunt Becky, so the three girls on the show, their mother had passed away, so they live with their dad and then the uncle and the friend, so it's all male. And so they bring in Aunt Becky a couple seasons in to kind of be sort of a mom figure. She marries Uncle Jesse. It's a whole thing. So there's an episode where DJ, so Candace Cameron, Bure, is worried about her size, which is all very troublesome the way that they portray it to begin with. I was going to rewatch it and I did not.
She spoke about this, I think, not.
Oh, did she?
In recent years. So we'll have to look that up. Yeah, I think she did. She talked about how they spoke about her body as a young adolescent on the show and how difficult that was.
Oh, man. Okay. I don't like that. But so in this episode, she's, I believe, not eating because she's trying to lose weight. And
she's like 12 or something, right?
It's she's middle school age.
Yeah, 12, 13.
Yeah.
the age you are when your body changes.
Yeah. Where you start to notice these things. And I think like she wanted to be as thin as Kimmy or whatever, you know, her neighbor who had a totally different body type. And so, you know, the dads are trying to talk. I say dads, you know, the three guys are trying, nothing's working. So they send in Aunt Becky. They send in the cavalry, which, by the way, if you know this actress, Lori Loughlin, she's a very small, petite person, always has been. I've never seen her, you know, which is fine. I think she's naturally small. Nothing against that. But they send her in to talk to her. And she gives her this piece of advice, which is to go through magazines, find body types that she likes or wants to be like, cut them out, tape them to the refrigerator door. And every time she wanted a snack or whatever, that would remind her. I mean, she said to like make a healthy choice for what you were going to eat. But like, to me, that implication is like, ooh, just don't open that refrigerator door.
But also, oh man.
Go ahead. Unpack.
There's so much to unpack there because number one, you are telling a young girl whose body is supposed to be looking weird for a while. Our bodies don't settle down for a long time. And then guess what? You go through it again in your 40s.
Oh, yeah.
And then you go through it again in your 50s and then your 60s. I mean, your body is, here's the thing. Your body is always changing. It's not supposed to look like anybody else. And it's not supposed to look like it used to look. Okay. Your body is always evolving. But what that did was tell DJ there is one way to look that is healthy and good. Okay. And that she should attain that however she can. That does not take into account DJ's body. Plus, she is already having some, well, I don't remember the episode, but if she's already having some issues, you're encouraging her to have more.
Yeah.
Instead of just talking to her and saying, hey, your body's going through things. It's going to look a bunch of different ways, you know, and that's what's supposed to happen. And looking in a magazine for pictures of people to emulate is, especially then,
which we'll get into here.
But I did that. I remember I would put sticky notes to myself on a refrigerator. I did this in recent years. When I was very involved in like an evangelical church community, which by the way, I don't identify as a Christian anymore. That's a whole nother 600 episodes we could do. But I had a note that said, your body is a temple, not a trash can.
Oof. So,
right?
Not to get too into the weeds here. I was raised evangelical.
Right.
And I've done a lot of reading on it and also just have realized it as I got older. Again, if you're evangelical, hopefully you don't haven't encountered these issues.
We're not throwing shade to you. We're
not at all.
No.
But there is a very big, I don't know what the word is, but narrative around control through weight and worth.
Control, period.
Worth, yeah. But especially for women.
Correct.
That's if you're worried about your weight and your looks all the time, that's what you're going to kind of be worried about. And that's sort of your place. And that's messed up too. But I mean, you can go beyond that. Yeah. Like society in general. If we're spending all this energy and time worrying about these things, maybe we're not finding the cure for cancer, you know, because not using our brains to the ability that we can, because there's only so much brain power you have. Yeah. So I remember watching that episode when it aired and it stuck with me. I don't know that I ever actually did it, but I remember thinking like, oh yeah, that's really motivating. Like it's a constant reminder to like look that way. And so you mentioned, you know, trying to look the way people looked in magazines then. So, you know, we've got Kate Moss.
Heroin chic.
I have that later in my notes. Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
I'm glad. No, I'm glad. Because again, no shade to any of these people we're talking about whatsoever. But, you know, she had that Calvin Klein modeling in the early 90s. Her hip bones were showing. And I don't know, that might be normal for her body. I have no idea. I don't think she's ever spoken out about it that I know of.
I don't know. I mean, we're not skinny shaming at all. Please.
No.
I had a hairdresser who I loved very much, and she was a naturally thin person. And people would say the worst things to her.
I don't like that.
And that's not okay either. You know, like they would be like, why don't you eat a cheeseburger? And she'd be like, I
did for lunch.
I mean, you know, so we're just saying when that is the only image presented to you as an ideal to reach for, that is a problem.
Yes, exactly. And around that, early January 1990, so right into the 90s, the cover of Vogue was the Big Five supermodels, and they included Cindy Crawford, Naomi Campbell, Tatjana Patitz, Christy Turlington, and Linda Evangelista. Now, out of the five of them, the only one who naturally looked different was Naomi Campbell. However, in this picture, she still has that classic supermodel look. You can see her collarbones, her hair is straightened so that she kind of blends in with these other models. She still subscribes to this sort of Eurocentric ideal.
Right. So it's like, oh, look, we have a model who is of color, but we're still going to make her look exactly like these other ladies.
Exactly.
Who are white women.
Yeah.
Correct?
Exactly.
They all were, right?
Yes. They were all white.
And it's that Eurocentric ideal. Yeah. I mean, they straightened her hair, not that there's anything wrong with that,
If you want to.
Correct.
But it's just kind of like they're trying to make her look as close to everybody else. And even within the other four, they didn't have to look alike.
Right.
Like, they could have had their hair different or makeup or be a different size than everyone else, right? Yep. So, all right. So then we've got, were you a Friends fan?
I was, and I knew this was coming.
And maybe you still are. I like Friends for what it's worth. But, Fat Monica from Friends. She first appeared in 1995, but appeared several times, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Thoughts on Friends, on that, on all of it?
So, as someone now who has been in all kinds of sizes of bodies, at the time, because I was opposite than you when I was growing up, I was a smaller person, but I had a bigger body for a smaller person. So I was larger than most of my friends, and I was made fun of a lot. And that was hard, but that I took with me into later years. And then, and then I was small, then, I was smaller, then I was bigger again. And then, so when that came out, it was 95. I was in high school, and I remember thinking it was hysterical, right? I thought it was so funny. And then I remember watching it back, I wouldn't say in recent years, but after I'd been through college, I gained weight, lost weight. And I remember thinking that is awful. Horrible, awful. And there's lots of things we could talk about on that. Oh, by the way, Katie and I are going to start doing some episodes called Problematic or Nostalgic.
We are.
And Friends might have to be one we revisit.
Friends might have to be. I guess, sorry, we didn't really say what this is to people that might not know, because I told you to unpack it. But so Fat Monica was the actress Courtney Cox, who's very, very small, very thin, basically wearing a fat suit.
Oh, yeah. No, she was wearing a fat suit.
She was wearing a fat suit. Face, everything, and they were in flashbacks because the running joke was how quote unquote fat she used to be in high school.
Right.
And so they would do these flashbacks, and it was the actress in a fat suit.
Right.
And they still air these episodes in syndication.
Well, and they portray it as such a joke, as a joke. Her body was the subject of so many jokes.
Yeah.
Which makes me cringe just sitting here. And also, it was seen as this big personality flaw of hers and almost like a dirty secret they didn't want to talk about.
Yeah. She was embarrassed by it.
Right.
Ross, her brother, would kind of hold it over her head when he was trying to make fun of her or, give her a hard time.
Right.
Even Rachel, her best friend, would be kind of comment about how it was bad when she was like that.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate then and now. So then in 2001, we've got Bridget Jones movies, which first of all, she's not very big in those movies.
No.
Not that it matters.
And those books came out before that.
Yeah, that's right.
Because I am the bookworm here. Well, Katie reads and
books.
She's a bookworm
I hadn't read those though.
I'm a big giant book nerd. So I loved those books. Helen Fielding wrote them. And I would have to check the year, but they came out in the 90s, the late 90s, because this was 2001 when the movie came out. But I remember reading the books and being like, why is this lady seen as overweight?
Yeah.
Because should we give them a little summary of what that's about?
Yeah. So Bridget Jones, she's basically a British single lady.
Yes.
And just unlucky in love, therefore unlucky in life. And
she's kind of a mess.
She's kind of a mess, not because of her size, but just in general.
She perceives herself as a mess because of her size is
Correct.
one of the reasons.
One of the reasons is that she, is not the right size to succeed in her career, attract a boyfriend / husband, even socially have like the friend she wants. And it's this big thing. And there's these iconic scenes, at least in the movie. I don't know how they were written about in the book, where she's just sitting by herself, crying, eating ice cream alone. And it's just like, this is going to be her state because of her size, among other things, basically.
I mean, she would say, like, when you're reading the book, she has like different entries of her diary, right? And every entry starts off with how much she weighs, how many cigarettes she smoked that day, because she was a big drinker and big smoker, which means she's in her 20s, single lady in the 90s, whatever. And she would write down how many alcohol units she had that day.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That's the diary.
That's a big part in the book. Like every chapter, every diary entry has all that. But then she also is so self-deprecating to herself too. Like, oh, I'm as big as a house and like blah, blah, blah. And I remember when they cast this movie, there was big annoyance on who they cast, because they cast Renee Zellweger, who was an American. And also, this was brought up during the time. She was not, quote unquote, overweight like she was supposed to be. But even in the book, the weights they put down, I was like, that's not like normal.
That's nothing.
Well, I don't want to say normal. That's not okay. That is a frequent weight among people.
Yeah.
It wasn't, I don't know.
A common thing that women her age would weigh. Right.
And
And I also remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, what you just said about the backlash. I remember she got a lot of praise for putting weight on for the movie. Oh my gosh.
And she,
and, like, won awards for it. And it was like, oh my gosh, she did this thing. She put on all this weight for this role, but I think Chicago was filmed not long after that, and she was back to, whatever weight again. But I just remember she got a lot of praise for the gaining and losing of the weight.
Right.
Which was weird.
Super common. Oh, also, we should probably say Titanic and Kate Winslet.
Yes.
Who, when she was in that movie, which was 97, I believe. Because
that sounds right.
It was my senior year, and I remember I went to the movie theater with my friend Ryan like multiple times to see this movie. And I think it was 97. Like there's a scene where she is nude, right? And being drawn. Not to ruin Titanic for y'all.
Spoiler alert from 25 years ago, 26 years ago.
And anyway, there was all this like stuff about her body type being bigger and sort of praised for it. And she has spoken about that now, saying like, I wish so much focus was not put on my body during that time, because that's all people ask me about, like in interviews and stuff.
That's crazy and weird.
Right? Because if you look at pictures, it's like, why was she seen like that? Was considered a large body? Are you kidding me?
Right. Exactly.
It was just, yeah. So I'm glad that popped in my brain. That made me think
I'm glad you brought that up. And then I have on here also in 2001, same year as Bridget Jones movie came out, Shallow Hal.
Oh.
Shallow Hal, another Gwyneth Paltrow in a fat suit this time. And it was supposed to sort of be like this moral high road that you can still fall in love with people no matter how they look, sort of thing.
Gross.
It's so bad. I don't even think we should. Let's not spend more time on this. Let's move on.
There's so many, like, I know we talked about, like, we focus on 80s and 90s a lot here, but the early 2000s have to come into play too.
Oh yeah, I've got a few on here.
Yeah,
I do. Well, 2009. I don't know if you remember this. It's in quotation marks because that's what people called it. The Jumbo Jessica controversy. Jessica Simpson.
Yes, I remember this.
I just, when I was looking this up, just happened to, see the pictures anew because I haven't seen them in forever, and I was like, huh? First of all, fine, whatever her body looks like. But also this sort of what you said about Kate Winslet, this was considered a bigger body.
That's considered jumbo. Give me a break.
Yeah, give me a break. And then 2003.
I mean, she was probably a size 6, 8.
If that.
If that.
Yeah. So then 2003, absolutely love this movie. Love the musical more. But y'all, Mean Girls has one huge flaw.
Yeah. Well...
It has more than one. We're going to revisit that for problematic or nostalgic as well. Revisit. Don't worry. And you can add us with what more than. But one of the big problems that relates to today is that the way that they made Regina less hot was to get her to gain weight.
Yeah.
And I was telling Danny this recently, of all the things you could pick, like literally anything, you could put chemicals in her shampoo so her hair fell out. You could do something that caused a rash on her face or her
whatever.
Body. Like literally anything. But her gaining a couple pounds was somehow the way to make sure people didn't think she was hot anymore. And that is still, like, I just saw the movie musical. So did you.
Yeah.
It is still the narrative.
I was hoping they were going to change that because they did change some of the other problematic stuff that was in the original movie.
Okay.
But they did not change that.
That one's still there. I will say it was less prominent. It wasn't, I think if you hadn't seen the original, you may, I don't know, because she's running on that treadmill.
Yeah, girl.
Renee Rapp. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, well, we can move on from that one. So this is funny because you already said this. I just wanted to highlight this whole section that the New York Times article from 1996, which coined this term that Danny said earlier, stated that 90s fashion was a pusher of what appears to be the best dressed heroin addicts in history. So heroin chic.
Yeah. And I mean, the image presented in fashion and all the things was not just skinny. It was skeletal.
Correct.
And I mean, they're not wrong when they're saying you looked unhealthy. I mean, I don't know if we need to say like heroin addicts. Maybe that was not the nicest thing. But you look gaunt. You look gray. Like, I mean.
Well, and just that it's completely unachievable probably for those people, let alone for the average person, girls growing up who need, we all do, but certainly girls and boys growing up need some body fat for the things to happen that needs to happen to develop. And that's not just body, that's brain. Yeah. That's everything.
I mean, even if you're a naturally, thinner, smaller person, like I was telling you, my hairdresser, this was not that. This was very extreme. If you did not grow up during that time, which ironically, we have a lot of listeners who did not. You may not realize how prevalent that was, know, and it was
so prevalent that I've been aware of it for many years, but revisiting this episode, I was even more shocked.
Yeah. It's shocking to see again.
Researching, I was like, this was a real thing.
And that was embedded in our teen brains.
Yep. And not to get too far in the weeds here, but for all the flack that social media gets, and it probably deserves a lot of that, and it can perpetuate some of these bad body image issues, I see a lot of content that's the opposite. It's just a matter of seeing it. I see a lot of, and I'm not just talking about people our age who have like this wisdom now, but I'm talking about teenagers.
Yeah.
And young women, young men, whatever, young people who are saying, this is what a body looks like. And I love my body and you should love yours. And, and now whether or not our teens are seeing that in their algorithms is another story. But I know my girls, like, they'll depend, I don't know what's going on in their heads exactly, but they'll say things about stuff like that. And they'll say, yeah, everybody looks different, or this is just how I'm built, or so-and-so, I follow her. They'll send me videos of these people with this content. So I think another problem of when we were growing up is that media was much more narrow.
Yeah.
You could only get it from X number of places. And if they all kind of had the same narrative, that was all you were seeing. That was all that was in the magazines, all that was on the commercials, all that was on TV, in a way that now is a lot more fragmented. And you can find different opinions if you want.
Yeah. And I feel like mainstream media with movies, TV shows, sitcom, all those things are getting much better at presenting much more, not just diversity in bodies, but gender identification and,
Agree.
ethnicities and,
we certainly have a long way to go, but if you compare it to like today, what we see based on late 90s, even 2010s, it's definitely gotten much better.
Yeah.
Much better.
Yeah. I feel like obviously there's still so much to do and we're still doing lots of things wrong as will be done. But I think it's gotten so much better. And I really wish there would have been more of this when we were coming up. That doesn't mean that kids and teens don't still have body image issues, because they will. And that's just, I think, part of growing. But I feel like if I would have seen more, it would have helped me a little bit, at least not feeling like something, something was wrong with just me.
Yeah. And you never know. I feel like sometimes I'll see the same type of content on social or even in a movie or on TV or a podcast.
Yeah.
And I'll see the same sort of message. And for some reason, that 12th time that I see it, the person who delivers it or how they say it clicks. And maybe it's the same sort of thing I've seen a bunch of times. And so I just have to hope. I mean, I know those things have helped me.
Right.
Now I'm older, more developed. It's cliche for our younger listeners, but it's true. Once you get to your 40s, you care a lot less about these
what I
things.
call it? I'm not going to say the word because we try to keep this PG. I call it my F it decade.
I love it.
My 40s.
Yes. Right. I love that.
It really has. I mean, I'm 43 now, so it's been 3 years of it, and I'm here for it. Let's go. Forget all this. So one other thing I want to mention outside this media is that 1995 was also when we saw the rise of BMI or body mass index, which we talked about a little on Danny's episode as well. And it became this sort of barometer. And the notes I have here are that, this deceptively straightforward weight to height calculation that today would render almost all of us overweight or obese. I am technically obese if you do it on a BMI.
Wow. Really?
Overweight. Well, I don't think I'm obese, but sorry, let me, I don't mean the obese. I am overweight.
You're overweight. Okay.
If you just get my BMI.
If you just do that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because that's I'm small and I'm muscular. I mean, I'm not like He-Man or something, but I am, what is the right word?
Yeah.
Dense.
You're dense. Yeah. I get it.
Does that make sense?
Like a sack of potatoes, right? I try to pick you up.
Yeah. And I'm okay. I'm gonna let you keep going.
Well, yeah. So it does have racist origins, and it hasn't been updated.
By the way, the guy who created BMI was a mathematician.
Oh boy.
I was hoping you would say that.
Well, yeah. It doesn't say here that he was, but he did only use white men as his subjects.
Yeah, it's rooted in eugenics, which you did say yes.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a mathematician. He wasn't even a doctor.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's really something. So keep that in mind too. And just a great reminder here that every kind of my pregnancy example, well, you've gained 2 pounds. Like every body is different and at different phases. And there's not one chart.
No. Or
calculation or anything or scale that you can use to determine your health.
No.
There's
so many
so
factors.
much more in depth than that. And if you get nothing from these 2 episodes but that, I hope that's what you take away. That at every age, every stage, every size, every life phase.
Yeah.
Maybe it's pregnancy, maybe it's a new job, maybe it's grief. Every phase, your health is going to change and look different. And so I hope listeners our age, older, younger, whatever, can take that away.
Yeah.
So where does this all leave us? Unfortunately, I found this 2023 study from the University of Connecticut, which is linked in our show notes if you want to read the whole thing. But it's from the Media Empathy Foundation. And they surveyed about 1,200 U.S. adults about their views on how body size is depicted in the media. And even today, even though we said it's getting better, Their findings highlighted a pattern of stigmatization of media portrayals, reiterating the lack of representation of people of diverse body sizes, and negative and stereotypical depictions of people with higher weight in television, movies, and social media. And the majority of those respondents said TV shows and movies often engage in body shaming. And we talked on that today, that health reports tend to blame people for their weight, and that people of higher body weight are often excluded from leading roles in TV shows and movies. And this is weird. 80% of those people, I would hope it'd be like 99% with that strange outsider, but still, that's a pretty good majority. 80% felt that this type of thing sends a negative message.
Yeah.
Agreed. So we can agree on that. So we still have some work to do. So friends, we don't have a lot of answers except to say that there is a lot to unpack here. There are a ton of resources out there. I thought about saying, go here if you have this problem, go there if you have that problem, but I just don't feel well-versed enough in that.
Yeah.
So what I would suggest is you do a little bit of research, look more than one place if you're looking for something. I will link to those You're Wrong About episode, which was very well researched.
So good.
Lots of different sources. If you're listening to something, it's funny because we kind of just use our opinion and our narrative, but if you're listening to something giving you actual advice on these things, but there's no one sourced and there's no like actual backing, that's probably not something you want to take to heart for your diet or your fitness or your health.
Always look for receipts. That's what a friend of mine taught me a long time ago. When you are learning things, always look for receipts. And if you are teaching someone, always have your receipts to back it up, what you're saying.
Oh, I absolutely love that. Now, if you have personally benefited from resources like podcasts, articles, books, please contact us on our social, our email. We'll vet those things and potentially share them with our listeners as well, or maybe just check them out for ourselves. Because as we've mentioned, this is still something we're working on.
Yes.
So with that, I want to thank you for listening to Generation In Between, a Xennial podcast. If you liked what you heard, I don't know if liked is the right word for today, but if it made you, if you felt like you got some insight or some direction, share us with your friends of all generations. Leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find us on Patreon. You can also send us episode ideas now through our link tree and our show notes. And until next time, please take care of yourselves. We love you. See you next time. Bye.